but I say very gently to the right honourable gentleman that the proper form in these matters is to stick to the urgent question in the terms submitted. It's not appropriate for a member to refine or adjust or spin the terminology of the question. We really must stick to the terms. I'm not impugning the integrity of the right honourable gentleman, which No, I'm not doing anything of the kind. But I think it is, what I'm saying is I think that the right honourable gentleman has behaved in a mildly cheeky manner. And I hope he won't do that again. Secretary of State.
Sir Speaker, we would never accuse the right honourable gentleman of being less than cheeky, or for that matter, ever attempting to spin anything, but I stand by your judgment. A cheeky spinner he is. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, Universal Credit, I remind everybody, is an important and challenging programme. Provide major benefits for claimants in the country as a whole, with a clear financial set of incentives that will get an estimated 300,000 additional people into work and make 3 million claimants better off. But all major programmes involve difficult issues and difficult decisions week in, week out. In 2011, I added to the programme and the original schedule, as the right honourable gentleman knows, because we saw each other and I told him about this, the need for a pathfinder, which I said would start rolling out in April. I added that because I was concerned that we needed to be able to make sure throughout that we tested IT. This, by the way, is something that I've done in every programme, DLA to PIP, everything else. We need to make sure we're right, and I was concerned that the existing programme was not quite right. In the summer of 2012, or rather before that, in early 2012, I instigated an independent review because I was concerned that the leadership of the programme was not focusing in the way that they needed to on delivering the programme as was originally set out. This internal report showed me quite categorically that my concerns were right, that the leadership was struggling and there was a culture of good news prevailing and the intervention was required. And that, by the way, was very much what the NAO backed up. And as a result, in October 2012, I changed the leadership team and brought in the brilliant Philip Langsdale, who had actually delivered Terminal 2 at Heathrow successfully and was also one of the great IT brains in the UK. And he came in and made it very clear that this programme was deliverable and it needed to be reset so that it was deliverable in time and in budget. When he sadly died, I went to my right honourable friend and said, in the short term, while we look for a replacement, I asked for David Pitchford, who headed up the Major Projects Authority in January, and this was agreed with my right honourable friend, and the Cabinet Office helped us in put together the reset programme that had been started by Philip Langsdale. I accepted the findings of this report, absolutely in review, and made certain that in the last few months we've been working to deliver this. This has been handed over to Howard Shipley, who has now taken over. He wrote recently in the paper, The Telegraph, about how he believed this was deliverable in time and in budget. But the important thing about Howard Shipley is that he was the man that delivered the Olympic Park under budget and early. And his clear indication is that he believes we may do similar things here. And he's made it very clear. So I'd also like to remind the House that universal credit is not just succeeding, but it is also progressing. It is progressing because we've already started to roll out the Pathfinders. I was in front of the Select Committee in July, and I explained that those Pathfinders are already teaching us some very important lessons. And we're going to expand those into 6 new job centres and dealing with them. And also, from October, around 100 job centres a month will begin using the claimant commitment with new job seekers. And that commitment acts as a contract between the job seeker and the state. We're already seeing now that this is driving people into work. So, universal credit isn't just about IT. It's massively about cultural change to get people back to work and to ensure those who do go to work, particularly the poorest, benefit the most. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the NAO itself concludes, and I quote, "It is entirely feasible for the programme to go on to achieve considerable benefits to society. Every NAO recommendation that they've already made in the report has already been made." And the key lesson that I take from this is simply this, that unlike the previous government, who went and crashed one IT programme after another, no government minister ever intervened to change them early so they delivered on time. We are not doing that. I have taken action on this particular programme. This programme will deliver on time and will deliver in budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our Bible, Erskine May, on page 201, says very clearly that ministers must give accurate and truthful information to this House, correcting any inadvertent error at the earliest opportunity. Mr. Speaker, on the 5th of March this year, the Secretary of State said to my right honourable friend this: universal credit is proceeding exactly in accordance with plan. We now learn from the National Audit Office that the month before this statement was made, the department began a 13-week reset programme. 4 weeks earlier, the department reduced caseload forecasts for next April by 80%. 5 months before, the department had largely stopped developing systems for national rollout. Mr. Speaker, it is inconceivable that the Secretary of State did not know about this, because the reset programme was organised by the man he personally brought in to the department. And he said to me in a letter last month, "I closely monitor the progress of this groundbreaking programme." Now, the National Audit Office must agree its facts with the department. And the National Audit Office, in paragraph 13 of this report, says this: the department is now reconsidering the timing of full rollout, and that plans have changed 3 times in 4 months. This morning, the National Audit Office have told me that the NAO and the Permanent Secretary have agreed this statement, and yet it flatly contradicts what the Secretary of State has said to this House. To hit his deadline at the end of 2017, he must now move over 200,000 people a month onto the new system. That is a city the size of Derby. Now, the PAC next week will no doubt consider the changed timetable, the IT shambles and the write-offs, the lack of counter-fraud measures, the shambolic financial control and ineffective oversight. But what I want to say to the Secretary of State is this: he has let this House form a picture of universal credit which the nation's auditors says is wrong. The most charitable explanation of this is that he has lost control of the programme and he's lost control of the department. And he must now correct the record, he must now apologise to the House, and he must now convene cross-party talks to get this project back on track. The quiet man must not become the cover-up man.
Mr. Speaker, I must say to the right honourable gentleman, that was suitably pathetic coming from him. The reality is that he knows very well. He's been in to see me on a number of occasions. I would like to say what he said, but they're suitably unmemorable in every single case. The reality is this programme, as I said at the beginning, will be delivered in time and in budget. And there is no major change to that. What I have done, and I did early on, by the way, something he never did and they have never done, is to, when I got concerned about the delivery schedule, I made changes and I intervened. I have brought the right people in to do this. And I stand by that. And I will not take lessons from the honourable gentleman and his party. Let me just remind them in office what happened to them. The benefit processing replacement programme was scrapped at the cost of £140 million. No one apologised. The Child Support Agency wasted £500 million before they scrapped the programme. No minister intervened, no minister changed it. They wasted £3 billion on benefit overpayments. The tax credit system was delivered on one go at one day and it collapsed, costing billions, £30 billion lost in fraud. And the programme that delivered the health service IT changes, £13 billion, cancelled programme, no apologies. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, the lesson that I have learnt, and the lesson that we learn over here in conjunction with my right honourable friend, is that we check these programmes while they're progressing, and if there are changes need to be made, we make them. And in making those changes, I stand by the fact that the purpose here is to deliver this programme on time and in budget, something they never did in the whole of the time in government.
Sir Tony Baldry.
Doesn't my right honourable friend feel that every time Labour snipe at him on this, they just show that they're not serious about welfare reform? And isn't it right that the NAO report shows that universal credit can actually make substantial benefits to society, and indeed can benefit society by some £38 billion by 1922-23.
Yes, say to my honourable friend, the reality is that this NAO report is very clear about the benefits. It's also very clear that if we get the resets right, and they gave us a list, every one of those items has been done, this will save £38 billion. But more than that, it will help improve the lives of those least well off as they're delivered back into work. You remember, I inherited from this government before a chaotic system costing billions, and we are putting it right.
Mr. Alistair Darling.
Mr. Speaker, like many Secretaries of State at his department, I looked at something like the universal credit some 12 years ago, and I was advised then that it was technically very difficult, if not impossible, to implement at anything like an acceptable cost. And whatever the cost I was quoted, it was likely to end up costing an awful lot more. Now, I've listened to him this morning claiming that this is on track and in budget, which I find extraordinary since the National Audit Office says it's anything but. I've also listened to him blaming all those around him for letting him down. Could he tell us what advice he received when he gave this the go-ahead in 2010?
Say to the right honourable gentleman, who I usually respect, I have to say to him, and we were opposite each other if he remembers at the time he was looking at this, that the advice I received then was absolutely clear that this could be delivered and the timetable set within the department. I am responsible. I take full responsibility for the delivery of this. I will not shirk that. And I intend to deliver this in budget and in time. And I believe that if he looks at the NAO report, it's a historic report. It looks at the period where I made the changes. Yeah. Those changes have now been made, and all of the advisors, all of the experts, the people from outside believe that this is deliverable. You know, his party say they support this, and I was happy for that support, but all the way through they've voted against it and they've carped about it. I think it's far better if he makes sure that they stay the course.
Simon Kirby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Won't 3.1 million people, including many in Brighton, be better off and receive a higher entitlement under universal credit, including many, many people from the lowest incomes?
I say to my honourable friend, that's absolutely right, and that is why this is a programme that is worth seeing through, and having the nerve and the decision to do it is important. Of course there were difficulties, I do not shy from that, but the reality is the changes we've made as a government, with my department and with the Cabinet Office and external parties, will deliver this on time to benefit those very people, whilst the other side carps and forgets their own history.
Dayman Begg.
I'm really disappointed, Mr. Speaker, by the Secretary of State's bullish behaviour this morning, as I believe it's this attitude which has dismissed the voices from my Select Committee and many others that the implementation of universal credit wasn't going as well as was being presented. From now on, will the Secretary set realistic timescales for the rollout of universal credit, be honest, open and transparent about the challenges that bringing in such a large and complex system pose, and stop over-promising what can't be delivered?
I say to the right honourable lady, when I was in front of her in July, I was very clear about the changes being made, and I was also very clear that we would come back to her committee with the full rollout timetable in the autumn once we had delivered that. That's what we were asked to do, and I will do that. But I am not being over-bullish about this. The reality is, it takes determination to drive a reform through. I have that determination, and the department is determined, with the support and help, to make this happen. It is in all of our interest to do it. We believe, all of those charged, that it can and will be delivered in time and on budget. And I actually do not see any reason why not, and nor does the Audit Office, when they looked at it, said it is wholly feasible for that to happen.
Mr. Gregwell-Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The previous benefit system was confusing and unfair. Given that this government is committed to resolving this, can my right honourable friend tell the House when 1 million people will be on the new universal credit system, which is what we should be aiming towards as a first step?
Well, all I can say is at the earliest. The reality is that we want to shift as many people. But I would rather look at it in terms of how quickly we can get people from tax credits and people on job seekers allowance onto universal credit well in advance before the election. So my very key is that big volumes will be running through, but we need to take our time to ensure that as we roll the IT out, it works and works properly. And those are the reasons why I have made the changes that I have made to ensure the delivery and the safe delivery of this. Do you know, I could have just let this run. I could have accepted the word of some people that it would have been all right on the night, and I didn't. I took the job of making sure that we knew whether it was, and I have made the changes necessary to deliver this programme.
Mrs. Helen Goodman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Further to the answer the Secretary of State has just given, could he say what is his estimate of the number of people who will be on universal credit by the next general election?
I'm not going to give her that estimate now, because the reality is I am talking about rolling out in the autumn the clear statement about how and when we roll this out. All I can say to her, significant volumes will be in. I'm looking to close down job seekers allowance and tax credits well in advance of the election, and that will be significant volumes.
Mr. Bernard Jenkins.
Mr. Speaker, is my right honourable friend aware that the Public Administration Select Committee is producing tomorrow a very important report about civil service reform? And it comes as no surprise that the Controller and Auditor General should be saying that his programme lacked an appropriate management approach. Instead, the programme suffered from weak management, ineffective control and poor governance. Because these are problems that afflict government across all departments and have done for many years under the previous government as well as this. And therefore, will he support the civil service reform so determinedly championed by my right honourable friend, the member for Horsham, to make sure that we get the change in Whitehall that we need?
First of all, let me say I am a complete supporter of my right honourable friend on the civil service reform plan, and I have been from day one. And the truth is, if the other side was in thinking mode, they would have agreed with that as well. The reality of the NAO report today shows that there were problems in the running of this. Now, I intervened when I discovered that and changed it. But you know, I never expected to have to do that when I arrived. I expected professionalism to be able to do this properly. So my view is I've intervened in the right way. All the other programmes of IT change are working, and they are well run, and they're well run by the department. This one was not. We have made the changes necessary.
Mr. Barry Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Secretary of State does, however, still need to explain why it was that he came to this House in March and said that the programme was proceeding according to plan, when in fact he knew at that point that a month previously he'd had to rip up those plans and reset the whole programme. Why did he do that? Why did he not give a more candid account to Parliament in March?
The plan is, and has always been, to deliver this within the 4-year schedule to 2017. At the time I came here, I believed that to be the case. I am standing here today telling this House, whether you like it or not, I am saying that that is exactly what the plan is today. We will deliver this in time and in budget. And I have to say, those changes were made deliberately to ensure that.
Mr. Philip Davis.
Can I invite my right honourable friend to welcome the conversion of the Shadow Secretary of State to care about the use of taxpayers' money? And in doing so, would he like to remind the House how much of welfare cuts and changes the right honourable gentleman opposite has actually opposed this government from making? And can I also urge him to adopt the cross-party talks that the Shadow Secretary of State urges, because whatever advice he gives, he would know to proceed in exactly the opposite direction.
I say to my honourable friend, I'm always willing to see the right honourable gentleman. The door has always been open. He's been in 3 or 4 times, and I'm very happy to see him again if he wishes. But honestly, he's right. The opposition has opposed every single welfare change. We're going to be saving $80 billion as a result of our welfare reforms. We've already last week seen the lowest number of households without work. Since this last government was in power, we've seen fewer people economically inactive, and we've seen a fall of over 300,000 in those out of work or economically inactive.
Mr. Andrew Miller.
I had a conversation with the late Philip Langsdale before he took up his post, and I have to say the man I have had the most profound respect for. When he took over the post, he did so because of previous project management failures. Now, can I remind the Secretary of State that it was he who signed off the contract which led to those project management failures. So rather than simply blaming civil servants, and whilst I agree with the chair of the Public Administration Committee about the need for change, rather than blaming civil servants, why doesn't he accept the blame himself?
Not blaming civil servants. I made decisions that led to the removal of some of those who were charged with the responsibility of delivering this. The NAO report today is very clear that that culture of secrecy and of good news did not help run those departments. Now, the reality is that does not run all the way through every programme. You know, we're delivering DLA PIP, and that programme has been modified and changed because they brought forward all of those concerns. The same with the CMEX CSA changes, the same with the CAP changes. All of those IT programmes have been dealt with in my office in conjunction with them in the proper way. This one was not. And so I'm simply saying, and he's right about Philip Langsdale, a brilliant man, that's what he said to me at the beginning, this one did not tell the truth.
Mr. David Nuttall.
Mr. Speaker, does my right honourable friend agree with me that all this debate about the minutiae of what is a complex transformation and simplification of what by any measure is a very complicated benefit system risks losing sight of the bigger picture in all this, which is that universal credit will mean that work always pays, and that whatever the costs are of developing the system, will be a small fraction of the billions of pounds which will be saved in the long run.
Marlborough's right. I remind the House that under the last government, in the 6 years preceding the election, tax credits cost £180+ billion because of the shambles and the mess they were in. They have lost huge sums of money through tax fraud and evasion, and we are putting that right. So our welfare reforms, including universal credit, all opposed by the other side, will reform and change it, and they are already having effect, not one of which has been supported by the right honourable gentleman who has carped and voted against every single one.
Mr. Clive Betts.
Speaker, one of the most damning criticisms of the NAO report is the lack of a proper fraud detection system as part of universal credit. When the Minister for Welfare Reform came to the Community and Local Government Select Committee earlier this year, he said that a new fraud detection system would be put in place. Why did the Secretary of State allow this programme to run for so long without an adequate fraud detection system being part of it?
Actually, that is exactly one of the reasons why we intervened back in 2012, was because the system that they were trying to integrate was not going to work correctly. And that process was already evident by the end of 2011, and in early 2012, these problems were such that when I introduced the independent inquiry, it told me categorically this was not going to work. So we've changed it, reset it, and in conjunction with the Cabinet Office, there is a better way to do this, and we believe that integrated fraud programme will deliver results in the new rollout.
Mr. Nigel Mills.
Can I say that when that committee visited the North West, what we saw was universal credit working in a limited manner, but actually working, and being very well received by the staff who were working with it, who was finding it had a positive impact on their claimants they're working with. But surely it is right that we do not roll this out so fast and risk millions of people not getting the benefit that they're actually expecting to get. So can I urge the Secretary of State to say to the House that he will not rush this, he will get it right before it is actually rolled out on more people?
I agree, and I must say that the problem has been throughout all of this is that on the other side, when I introduced the Pathfinder, which said there would be a delay in the way that we rolled it out, we were criticised for delaying the rollout. And then later on they criticised us for not doing it properly. The reality is that we are doing this properly. We will do it not against artificial timetables, but it will be in the overall 4-year timetable, and it will be effective.
Mark Durkan.
The Secretary of State has told us today that he had serious concerns in the summer of 2012. He also told us that he then changed the leadership in October 2012. Does he recall that in September 2012, the 11th of September, he told this House at column 154 in Hansard, "For what it is worth, I take absolute direct and close interest in every single part of the IT development. I hold meetings every week, and a full meeting every 2 weeks, and every weekend a full summary of the IT developments, and everything to do with policy work is in my box, and I am reading it. I take full responsibility, and I believe that we are taking the right approach. Culture of secrecy and good news, or what?
I don't resolve from any of that. That's exactly the way that we've tried to manage it. But of course, at the end of the day, you're only as good as the information given to you. And I must say to the right honourable gentleman, by September 2012, I had already started that reset process, brought in Philip Langsdale was coming into the office, and we were going to make those changes. You know, the reality is this will be delivered in time, in budget. That was my view then. It is my view today. And the key thing is those charged with the responsibility of doing that have the skill to do it.
Yeah. Mr. Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is my right honourable friend aware that his transformative scheme has enormous public support, as it will revolutionise dependency by reducing it in this country? And does he note, as I do, that the socialist opposition in office swallowed any number of camels and are now straining at a gnat?
Well, he's absolutely right, because as I said earlier on to my honourable friend, the party opposite has opposed every single reform since we came into government. Those reforms set to save some 80 billion, and universal credit is part of that, and at no stage have they told us what they would do instead. When they said they would support universal credit, they voted against it. This is a party in opposition that is so opportunistic that it catches itself in the morning disagreeing with itself in the evening.
Glenda Jackson.
Since the Secretary of State took personal responsibility for this failure, what we have seen is a delay in the timescale for the universal rollout of universal credit, a reduction in the number of Pathfinder programmes, reduced way down, claimants being reduced to the simplest to pass through the system. So when he gives us, as he undoubtedly will again, the time and the budget, could they at least be accurate? And may I say to him, when it comes to spinning, it takes one to know one, but his spinning will not create humour in the country. It could be catastrophic for benefits claimants.
Well, the honourable lady, not for the first time, is completely wrong. The Pathfinder was exactly as we set it down. No, it was exactly as we set it down. It was always going to be dealing with single people at the beginning, and we've rolled it out in the same way as we said it would. So I have to say, honourable lady, I stand by the fact this Pathfinder is the right thing to do. I introduced it back in 2011, and it will help us enormously to develop the IT. That is the way we're doing it. That is the way we will do it.
Mike Freer.
Having visited with the DWP Select Committee the Pathfinders, can I reassure my right honourable friend that both the claimants and the frontline staff were enthusiastic about the universal credit and how it is working? But is my right honourable friend also aware that the Select Committee commented that this government is making significant progress in making work pay?
He is exactly right, honourable friend. The reality is that all of our reforms, reducing the workless numbers, making sure those economically inactive are going back to work, saving money for the Exchequer and for taxpayers, are all in play. Every one of those has been opposed by the other side. No answer do we get about what they would do instead. And as my honourable friend said earlier on, they dance around on all the issues. The truth is they have no policy. The Welfare Party is bankrupt.
Mr. Derek Twigg.
Mr. Speaker, under the section Key Findings, paragraph 18, it says, throughout the programme, the Department has lacked a detailed view of how universal credit is meant to work. Could the Secretary of State explain how that happened? And doesn't it actually indicate that from the very beginning he lost control of the project?
The original plan to do it as an agile process meant that by 2011, that plan would formulate and they would be able to deliver against that plan. In 2011, I was concerned about the failure to deliver that which was meant to be part of the process. That's why I instituted these changes in 2012. We will have that plan ready and it will be announced out here into Parliament, and that will be stuck to, and it will deliver in time and in budget. So the NAO is right, and I fully agree with them.
Sir Peter Bottomley.
We understand the aim is to give support to the right people at the right time in the right way and help make their lives better. Can my right honourable friend give us a reminder of the additional benefits of reductions in administrative costs, in fraud and in error?
The costs overall and the savings are enormous. The total of the benefits both to individuals and in fraud and error will total way up to maybe even £38 billion. And the point is, these savings are real savings. Yes, there is a problem about some wasted money in this programme, which is quite unacceptable. But set against the big savings, this is the key. It is a big and important programme.
Catherine McKinnell.
The use of real-time information is absolutely critical to universal credit being rolled out across the country and working properly. So can the Secretary of State confirm that the RTI project is on time and on budget at HMRC also?
Yeah, the very good thing about the Pathfinder, it's allowed us to test the RTI system, and what she would find if she wants to visit any of these sites is that we are getting a phenomenally good feed from the RTI about the payroll. So in other words, in some areas, they've already discovered that some people claiming job seekers allowance are actually earning a salary at the same time. And they've been able to deal with that. That's hugely due to the fact the RTI system is working. And I recall that many on the other side said the RTI software would not work. Well, they were wrong.
Justin Tomlinson.
Why was this urgent question called when the Public Accounts Committee, for which I'm a member, is investigating this next Wednesday, this clearly outdated historic report?
Order. I'm afraid that's not a question for the Secretary of State. I decide whether an urgent question is granted or not. I'm fully conscious of what other parts of the House are doing. The judgment I have to make is, should the matter be aired on the floor of the House today? And the answer is yes. And that, to be honest, is the end of the matter. Margot James.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was delighted to hear my right honourable friend say that he thought that the cultural change afforded by the introduction of universal credit was even more important than the financial savings that it will offer. In my part of the world, in the Black Country, we have a higher than average rate of workless households. Could I ask my right honourable friend, would he talk to his officials about making sure that some of the Pathfinder pilots that he has in mind take place in the Black Country?
I thank my honourable friend for her support, and I will absolutely ensure that she gets the earliest rollout possible.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Secretary of State, in looking at the operation of universal credit, look at the wholly disproportionate effect on people living in high private rented sector cost areas where a wholly disproportionate level of their benefit goes on private sector rents rather than keeping body and soul together. We need to look at that, and we also need, I think, to have control of private sector rents.
Can I say to the honourable gentleman, universal credit, I believe, will help in that regard, because as they go back to work, the idea is that at every hour they work, they will be better off than they are on benefits, and that should add to their ability to be able to afford to live. And as I make the point, the vast majority of the benefits under universal credit will go to the bottom 20% of those earnings, so it should be a net benefit to the poorest in society.
Nick Dubois.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I urge the Secretary of State to reject the offer from the Shadow Secretary of State of cross-party talks, not just because of their failure in IT and benefit fraud and tax credit system, but they fundamentally do not believe in welfare reform, which this country desperately needs.
Say to my honourable friend, I'm not going to reject the offers of the right honourable gentleman, because I'm an optimist. I believe there's always a chance that on the road to Damascus, an individual like that may change his view and realise that what we're doing is the right thing. So I'll do my level best to persuade him that everything he's done so far is wrong and that there is a better way marked coalition.
Sheila Gilmore.
Sorry. The problem for the Secretary of State is that we have been here before. We've been told on every occasion that everything was fine. Agile programming, whatever that is, was going to solve all the IT problems. Now Agile was all wrong. The problem I think the Secretary of State now has is that he still wants to deliver this by 2017, despite the fact that he's already far behind his original timetable that was delivered 2017. Would it not be better if he does accept that there are all these problems, it's unlikely that universal credit will be as simple as cheap to administer, all these words, would it not be better to delay the final implementation date?
Can I say to the honourable lady, she's right. I agree with her. We had been here before. National Health's IT collapse, 13 billion. Child Support Agency, 120 million failure and crash programme. 7.1 billion IT project failed. The difference is that unlike those programmes under her government, I acted to make sure the changes were made early to deliver the programme on time and in budget.
Order. I appreciate there's much interest, but 25 members have questioned the Secretary of State. We must now move on because the House